October 4th, 1957, 9:37 in the morning. The barbershop at the Park Sheraton Hotel on 7th Avenue was doing steady business. 3 barber chairs, all occupied. 6 customers waiting on the leather benches along the wall. The smell of talcum powder and bay rum hung in the air. The sound of scissors clicking, razors scraping, quiet conversations about baseball and weather, and nothing important. In the center chair sat Anastasia, 54 years old. Grey hair slicked back, white barber's cloth draped over his expensive suit. His eyes were closed, head tilted back, while the barber worked a straight razor across his jaw in smooth, practiced strokes. Outside, in the hotel lobby, 14 men waited. Anastasia's security detail, armed, alert, making sure nobody got close to the Lord High Executioner without permission. Anastasia, the man who'd run Murder Incorporated, the enforcement arm that had killed hundreds, maybe thousands, the man who'd ordered executions with the same casual tone most people use to order coffee. They called him the Mad Hatter because of his temper, his unpredictability, his willingness to kill over perceived slights. And they called him Lord High Executioner because when Anastasia wanted someone dead, that person died. But right now, eyes closed, razor at his throat, Anastasia was completely vulnerable. The barbershop door opened. 4 men walked in. The waiting customers looked up, then quickly looked away. You didn't make eye contact with men who moved like that. Confident, dangerous, purpose in every step. Bumpy Johnson led them. Illinois Gordon, Willie Jackson, and Raymond Quick Lewis behind him. 4 men in dark suits, fedoras angled just right. They didn't announce themselves, didn't need to. The 3 barbers recognized Bumpy immediately, and their hands froze mid-cut. Bumpy walked directly to the center chair, stood beside it, looked down at Anastasia, who still had his eyes closed, still had the razor against his neck, still had no idea what was happening. Bumpy said quietly. Anastasia's eyes snapped open. He saw Bumpy's reflection in the mirror first, then turned his head slightly, carefully, because the barber still held the razor and looked directly at him. Bumpy Johnson. Anastasia's voice was gravelly, thick with his Italian accent. You're either very brave or very stupid. Which is it? Neither, Bumpy said. I'm practical. The barber's hand was shaking now. The razor trembled against Anastasia's skin. Around the shop, the other 2 barbers had stopped working entirely. The 6 customers on the benches sat frozen, not sure if they should run or stay invisible. Many details of this era were never officially recorded. If stories like this interest you, feel free to subscribe and stay with us. You walk into my barber? Anastasia said, while I'm getting a shave, with 14 of my men 30 feet away. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That's not practical, Bumpy. That's suicidal. Maybe. Bumpy looked at the barber. Give me the razor. The barber's eyes went wide. Sir, give it to me. The barber looked at Anastasia. Anastasia's jaw tightened, but he gave a small nod. The barber's hand was shaking so badly, he almost dropped the razor as he handed it to Bumpy. Bumpy took it, held it up to the light. The blade was spotless, freshly stropped, sharp enough to split a hair. He tested the edge with his thumb, drew a tiny bead of blood. Good blade, Bumpy said. Then he pressed it against Anastasia's throat. The entire barbershop went dead silent. The other 2 barbers backed away from their chairs. The 6 customers on the benches didn't breathe. Illinois, Willie, and Raymond positioned themselves near the door, hands inside their jackets where guns were hidden. Anastasia didn't move. Couldn't move. The razor was pressed against his carotid artery. One quick pull, and he'd bleed out in 90 seconds. Bumpy said, his voice still quiet, still controlled. You and I need to have a conversation, and I need you to listen very carefully. Can you do that? Anastasia's eyes were locked on Bumpy's in the mirror. You're a dead man, Bumpy. The moment you leave this hotel, maybe, but you'll be dead first. And that's what we need to talk about. Bumpy, increase the pressure slightly, not enough to cut, just enough that Anastasia could feel the blade biting into skin. You've been making moves into Harlem. Policy banks, numbers runners, my territory. I've been patient, sent messages, made it clear you weren't welcome, but you kept pushing. Harlem's open territory, Anastasia said. His voice was steady, but there was tension underneath. You don't own it. I've protected it for 25 years. That makes it mine. Bumpy tilted the razor slightly. A thin line of blood appeared on Anastasia's neck. Not a deep cut, just a scratch, but enough to show this wasn't a bluff. Now you're going to make a choice. You can keep pushing into Harlem, and we can have a war. You're 14 men outside against 4,000 people who'll fight for their neighborhood. Or you can pull back, stop the operations, leave Harlem alone. And if I don't? Bumpy pressed the razor harder. The scratch became a thin cut. Blood began to trickle down Anastasia's neck, staining the white barber's cloth. Then this barber becomes famous, Bumpy said. The place where the Lord High Executioner died getting a shave. 60 people in this shop right now, Albert. 60 witnesses watching me hold a razor to your throat. They'll tell the story for 50 years. How Albert Anastasia, the man who killed hundreds, died helpless in a barber's chair around the shop. Those 60 people were absolutely motionless. Some had their eyes closed, praying this would end without them getting killed in the crossfire. Others watched in horrified fascination. All of them understood they were witnessing something that would become legend. You won't do it, Anastasia said. You kill me, my organization comes after you with everything. You know that. I do know that. That's why I'm giving you a choice, instead of just cutting your throat. Bumpy's hand was perfectly steady. No tremor, no hesitation. But make no mistake, Albert. I will kill you right here, if that's what it takes to protect Harlem. Because you've killed how many people? 200, 300, and you did it from a distance. Gave orders. Watched other people pull the triggers. But today you're the one with a blade at your neck. Today you're the one who's helpless. The blood was running more freely now. The cut wasn't deep, but it was there. Visible, real. Anastasia's jaw muscles were working, grinding his teeth. But he didn't speak. Here's what's going to happen, Bumpy said. I'm going to take this razor away from your throat. You're going to finish your shave with a different barber, and then you're going to go back to Brooklyn and tell your people that Harlem is closed. No more policy banks. No more numbers operations. No more nothing, you understand? And if I say no, Bumpy leaned in close, so only Anastasia could hear. Then I drag this blade across your neck right now. Your 14 men come running in. They shoot me, they shoot my people, probably kill half the customers in here. And you bleed out on this chair watching it happen. Is that what you want? For 10 seconds, neither man moved. Bumpy held the razor steady against Anastasia's throat. Anastasia stared at Bumpy's reflection in the mirror. The entire barbershop held its breath. Then Anastasia spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. You made your point. Say it clearly, Bumpy said. So everyone in this shop hears. Are you pulling out of Harlem? Another pause. 5 seconds that felt like 5 minutes. I'm pulling out of Harlem. Bumpy slowly withdrew the razor. Stepped back. The blood on Anastasia's neck was already clotting, the cut shallow enough that it wouldn't scar, but everyone in that barbershop had seen it. Had seen Bumpy Johnson hold a razor to Albert Anastasia's throat and draw blood. Bumpy handed the razor back to the barber, who took it with shaking hands. Then Bumpy walked toward the door. Illinois, Willie, and Raymond followed. Nobody tried to stop them. Nobody moved at all until they were gone. The moment the door closed, Anastasia ripped the barber's cloth off and stood up, touched his neck, looked at the blood on his fingers. One of the other barbers started to approach, but Anastasia waved him off. Get out, Anastasia said to the room. Everyone out, now. The customers didn't need to be told twice. They fled. The barbers followed. Within 30 seconds, the shop was empty, except for Anastasia, standing in front of the mirror, looking at the thin cut on his neck. Outside, his 14 men were waiting. They saw the blood, reached for weapons. But Anastasia shook his head. Stand down. It's nothing, boss. What happened? Nothing happened, Anastasia said. His voice was ice. We're leaving. They left. And as they walked through the hotel lobby toward the street, Anastasia's mind was racing. Bumpy Johnson had just humiliated him, in public, in front of 60 witnesses, had held a razor to his throat, and made him agree to pull out of Harlem. No one did that to Albert Anastasia. No one. 3 weeks later, October 25th, 1957, 10:15 in the morning, Albert Anastasia walked into the barbershop at the Park Sheraton Hotel. Same shop, same barber's chair. Different barber. The previous one had quit the day after Bumpy's visit. Anastasia sat down, leaned back, closed his eyes as the barber draped the white cloth over him and began preparing the shaving cream. Outside, his security detail waited. 14 men, alert, armed, making sure nobody got close. At 10:22, 2 men in scarves and hats walked past the security detail, walked into the barbershop, pulled out guns, and opened fire. They shot Albert Anastasia 10 times. Face, chest, back. He died in the chair, slumped forward, blood soaking the white barber's cloth. The killers ran. The security detail gave chase, but lost them. The barbershop was chaos. Witnesses screaming, police arriving, photographers, reporters. Within hours, the story was on every front page in America. Albert Anastasia murdered in barbershop. The investigation went nowhere. The killers were never identified. The motive was listed as mob politics, probably related to the Appalachian meeting that would happen a month later. Probably ordered by Vito Genovese or Carlo Gambino, rivals who wanted Anastasia's power. Probably, but in Harlem, people knew different. Old-timers who'd been in that barbershop 3 weeks earlier, who'd watched Bumpy Johnson hold a razor to Anastasia's throat. They knew Bumpy had sent a message. Pull out of Harlem or die in a barber's chair. Anastasia had pulled out. But 3 weeks later, he was dead anyway, in the exact same chair, the exact same vulnerable position. When reporters asked Bumpy about it, about whether he'd been involved in Anastasia's murder, Bumpy gave an answer that became part of the legend. Albert Anastasia was a violent man who lived a violent life. He killed hundreds of people, and he died the way violent men die. As for whether I was involved, I held a razor to his throat once and let him live. If I'd wanted him dead that day, he would have died that day. Someone else wanted him dead 3 weeks later. That's their business, not mine. The police investigated, found no connection between Bumpy and the killers, found no evidence. Eventually, the case went cold. But everyone in Harlem's underworld understood what had happened. Bumpy had gone into that barbershop to send a message, not to kill Anastasia. If that had been the goal, he would have done it. But to show Anastasia, show everyone, that the Lord High Executioner could be touched, could be made vulnerable, could be threatened in the same position where he'd eventually die. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for someone else to finish what Bumpy had started. Whether Bumpy had arranged it, whether he'd put the idea in someone's head, whether he'd simply demonstrated that Anastasia was killable, nobody knew for sure. What they knew was this. Bumpy Johnson had walked into that barbershop on October 4th with a razor. Albert Anastasia had walked out alive but humiliated. And on October 25th, someone else had walked in with guns and made sure Anastasia never walked out again. The barbershop at the Park Sheraton Hotel closed permanently 6 months later. Nobody wanted to get a shave where the Lord High Executioner had died. But before it closed, people would walk past, look in the windows, point at the center chair. That's where it happened, they'd say. That's where Bumpy held the razor. That's where Anastasia died 3 weeks later. 2 moments in the same chair. one man who walked away with a scratch, one man who never walked away at all, and the legend that connected them. Bumpy Johnson had shown the most feared killer in the American mafia what it felt like to be helpless, had pressed steel against skin, and drawn blood from a man who'd never bled except in victory. October 4th, 1957. A barbershop. 60 witnesses, one razor, and the quiet voice that said, "Pull out of Harlem or die in this chair." 3 weeks later, Anastasia died in that chair. Whether Bumpy pulled the trigger from 3 weeks in the past, nobody could prove. But the message was clear. The Lord High Executioner had been executed, and the last thing he'd felt was what all his victims had felt: powerlessness. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications for future stories, and let us know where you're watching from.